going to do this because Paul doesn't love my voice, but my mother does. Oh, come Emmanuel. Advent begins with yearning. Oh, come. Advent recalls the fact that we are taught and touched into life. Oh, come. Advent reminds us that if we attempt to do all the talking and touching for ourselves, we face a paralyzing unhappiness and anxiety. Oh, come, Emmanuel. We mourn in lowly exile here. Even as rich, comfortable Americans mourn, confused, helpless, alienated from each other, fighting, alienated and fighting the rest of the world. Then, in the midst of our mourning, comes the announcement. There is something on the horizons the likes of which we have never seen before. The beginning of the good news of Jesus Christ, the Son of God, as it is written in the prophet Isaiah. See, I am sending my messenger ahead of you, who will prepare your way. Mark's Gospel doesn't begin with angels whispering in Mary's ear. There are no shepherds keeping watch over their flocks by night. There are no wise men. I've gotten her started with my song, right? Yes. There are no shepherds keeping watch by night. There are no wise men following a star. There are no big-eyed animals in a straw-stuffed manger. Mark either didn't know about these things or didn't care. For him, the good news of Jesus Christ begins in the wilderness of Judea with an old-timey prophet named John, the first real prophet to show up in that part of the world in 300 years. The preacher, Barbara Brown Taylor, invites us to imagine the opening of Mark's Gospel as a movie. First, the camera pans the desert, buckskin-colored hills covered with nothing except sand and rock and silence. In the distance, a Bedouin shepherd dressed in black leads his sheep up one of the hills. As they disappear on the other side, the title appears on the screen: The Beginning of the Good News of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. As the camera continues to scan the hills, a voiceover says, "See, I am sending my messenger ahead of you." People appear on the screen, moving towards something we can't quite see. They come to the edge of a big crowd and muscle their way in, straining for a better view. The voice goes on. "Prepare the way of the Lord." Then as the camera breaks into the crowd, we see a strange sight. A skinny guy standing knee-deep in a small stream, long hair, unkept beard. Several of the men we saw yesterday at Loaves and Fishes would have been great stand-ins. He's distinctly out of fashion, wearing the same outfit Elijah wore 800 years before. We watchers, we strangers, may not recognize him, but clearly For the people gathered there, he was a messenger from God, predicted by one prophet, Isaiah, dressed like another one, Elijah. Now, I have to admit, I don't quite get the attraction. He's the kind of person, John the Baptist, that I would have gone out of my way not to see. He always reminds me, he appears every year at this time, and he always reminds me of those yelling street and TV evangelists who relish telling people how bad they are. But there's a difference. I've finally become to appreciate there's a difference between those self-appointed preachers and John the Baptist. The difference is that he set up his shop in the wilderness. Anyone who wanted to come see John had to haul it out to the desert. And why would they do that? Especially someone from Jerusalem, where the big temple was, and all the priests, and the rabbis, and all of the whole religious establishment. Why venture out and make a pilgrimage to the desolate wilderness? Yearning to hear something not available in Jerusalem. This strange, unattractive man spoke about someone who was coming. He didn't have a lot of details. He didn't have a name. He didn't even have a description. But he did know that the old world was about to end and a new world was spinning toward him. And it would be a world built of new materials, not the rearranged stones of the old religion. The Holy Spirit was getting smothered in Jerusalem with all of its pretend piety and temple taxes. The flame was sputtering under the weight of all that foppery. So God moved it out to the wilderness, out to the edge of things, where it was fed by the most socially unacceptable figure anybody could imagine. The gospel, the good news, the glad tidings always begin with a messenger. Whether it's an angel whispering in Mary's ear, or a parent telling a child a story, or a skinny prophet standing knee-deep in a stream. What is interesting to me about this prophet is that John the Baptist is nowhere near a church. In fact, those who insisted on staying inside the church never heard his message. Only those who were willing to venture out got to taste his freedom. The beginning of the good news of Jesus Christ happens in the middle of nowhere, not in the center of power. Now, St. Matthias is not the middle of nowhere, I grant you. But the neighborhood in which you find yourselves is increasingly a kind of desert, rife with unemployment, drugs, alcohol, poverty, homelessness, despair. Like John, you have good news to proclaim. Like John, you speak to people's yearnings to find meaning and wholeness in their lives. Like John, you stand at the margin and speak to the center. Like those yearning folks in Jerusalem, you have learned that only if we listen for God in church, we'll miss half the message. So St. Matthias, keep listening, keep watching, keep venturing out. Because the good news is always beginning somewhere in the world. For those with ears and hearts to go wherever the way may lead. Amen. Amen.